On a sweltering Florida morning in August 1997, millionaire Don Lewis walked out the door of his Tampa home and never came back. He left behind a vast real estate portfolio, a 40-acre big cat sanctuary, and a string of international business ventures, including property and dealings in Costa Rica. His wife, Carol Baskin, became the center of a mystery that still grips the public nearly 3 decades later. There was no body, no confirmed sightings, no financial activity, and no arrests. When Tiger King exploded on Netflix in 2020, it brought Don's disappearance back into the spotlight, and with it, a storm of accusations, memes, and amateur sleuthing. But behind the viral theories lies a real case, still officially unsolved, with real people still searching for answers. Welcome to Bad Things. Join us as we trace the final days of Don Lewis, break down every competing theory, and ask the question, what most likely happened? Don Lewis was a self-made millionaire who built his fortune in real estate, used cars, and scrap metal in Florida. By 1981, he was married with kids. But that year he met 19-year-old Carol Murdoch after a late-night roadside encounter. They began an affair while both were still married. Eventually, Don left his wife and married Carol in 1991. The following year, the couple co-founded Wildlife on Easy Street, a 40-acre exotic animal sanctuary near Tampa. Don wanted to breed and sell big cats. Carol wanted to rescue and rehabilitate them. Their clashing visions, and Don's frequent trips to Costa Rica, where he owned land and had business interests, strained the marriage. By 1997, things had unraveled. Don was talking divorce and transferring properties to a Costa Rican company. Carol claimed he was mentally deteriorating. Don's friends said he was fine. That June, Don filed for a restraining order, claiming Carol had threatened to kill him. The court denied it, but it signaled growing tension. August 17th to 18th, 1997. Don disappears. According to Carol, the night before Don vanished, she left home around 11 p.m. to get Pedialyte for sick bobcats. Her car broke down. Around 3 a.m., she encountered her brother, Deputy Chuck Stairs, on patrol. Dispatch logs confirm he was delayed responding to a call at that time. She was given a ride home by another officer, and around 4 a.m. she says she woke Don to help retrieve the car. She claims the last time she saw him was around daybreak when he left for an early delivery. Don never returned. The next day, Carol reported him missing. 2 days later, his van was found abandoned at Pilot Country Airport, 40 miles away. The keys were on the floor. Don owned planes, but had no valid license. All aircraft were accounted for. There was no flight plan, no evidence he flew anywhere. Police investigate. Searches of the sanctuary turned up nothing. Detectives followed leads to Costa Rica, where Don owned 200 acres and had business dealings and girlfriends. A police report noted questionable practices, but no foul play was found. More telling, Don's credit cards, bank accounts, and properties were untouched after August 18th. He'd simply vanished. 1998 to 2002. Suspicion, estate battles, and a cold case. Don's adult children were shocked when Carol produced new documents giving her full control of his estate. These were dated after Don disappeared and contained language that triggered if he was missing. Years later, experts confirmed the signatures were forged. By then, the statute of limitations had run out. Carol denied wrongdoing. "Without a body, there is nothing I can do to clear my name," she told People. Don's children eventually received a $1 million property settlement. Don was declared legally dead in 2002. The case went cold. 2020 to 2023. Tiger King and renewed interest. Netflix's Tiger King made Don's disappearance a global sensation. Joe Exotic accused Carol of murder, and feeding Don to tigers. Wild theories exploded online. "We had lost all hope," said Don's daughter, Donna Pettis, and then got some from a TV series. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office reopened the case. Corporal Moise Garcia received hundreds of tips, including from Trish Farr Payne, ex-wife of Don's handyman Kenny Farr. She claimed Kenny came home the night Don vanished with Don's van and guns, and later said, "If you try to leave me, I'll put you in the grinder like I did Don." Kenny has denied involvement and refused recent interviews. In 2021, Tiger King 2 suggested Don was alive and well in Costa Rica, citing a Homeland Security document. Carol echoed the claim in interviews. Law enforcement quickly dismissed it. "We believe it was a homicide," said Sheriff Chad Chronister. The scene was staged. As of 2025, Don Lewis remains legally missing. No charges have ever been filed. Theory number 1. Carol Baskin was involved in foul play. The most widely discussed theory, both in media coverage and internet forums, is that Carol Baskin, Don's second wife, played a role in his disappearance. The case gained international notoriety in Tiger King, which leaned heavily into this narrative, spurring memes, songs, and viral accusations. But beneath the noise are specific claims, timelines, and red flags that continue to draw scrutiny. This theory hinges on 3 key pillars: motive, opportunity, and behavior after the fact. Motive. Don and Carol's relationship was fraying. Don had told multiple people he wanted a divorce, and Carol later admitted she didn't take it seriously. According to Don's family, a divorce would have split assets, potentially costing Carol millions. "It was a perfect scenario," Don's daughter Donna Pettis said. "She gets rid of Don and doesn't lose everything." The couple also clashed over the direction of their sanctuary. Don wanted to continue breeding big cats, while Carol was pushing for non-profit status. Opportunity. Carol was the last known person to see Don alive. According to her, they were alone in the early hours of August 18th when he told her he was going out for a delivery. Detectives have described that timeline as suspicious, including the late-night errand, the coincidental roadside encounter with her deputy brother, and the lack of independent witnesses to verify her version of events. Aftermath. Within weeks of Don's disappearance, Carol produced a new will and power of attorney, giving her sweeping control over Don's assets, both containing a clause about Don being missing. Handwriting experts later declared the signature 100% a forgery, although no charges were filed. Carol maintains the documents are real. "Without a body, there is nothing I can do to clear my name," she told People magazine. She also refused a polygraph in 2002 on legal advice, and more recently, declined to participate in interviews with law enforcement. "Most missing persons' spouses cooperate," noted Corporal Moise Garcia, the current lead investigator. Only 2 people refused: Carol and Kenny Farr. Within this broader theory, multiple sub-theories have emerged. Fed to the tigers. Popularized by Joe Exotic, this idea suggests Carol fed Don's remains to the big cats. Don's family members raised this concern as early as 1997. "It's a perfect scenario," Donna Pettis said. Carol dismissed it outright. "My tigers eat meat, they don't eat people. There would be bones and remains," she told People. The meat grinder. This version proposes Don's body was dismembered using industrial equipment once on the sanctuary property. Trish Farr Payne's later claim that her ex-husband Kenny said, "I'll put you in the grinder like I did Don," fueled this theory. Investigators noted that the large grinders had been removed from the property prior to Don's disappearance, and Carol insisted the story was ludicrous. Buried under the septic tank. Some suggested Don was buried beneath a septic system at the sanctuary, but reporters found that the system in question wasn't installed until after Don vanished. This theory is largely dismissed due to the timing. Carol had help: Kenny Farr. Perhaps the most plausible subset suggests Carol didn't act alone. Kenny Farr, Don's longtime handyman, was described as loyal, deeply involved in the sanctuary's operations, and mechanically capable. His ex-wife, Trish Farr Payne, told police that Kenny returned home on the night of August 17th with Don's van and guns, and warned her never to mention Don again. In one argument years later, she claims Kenny said, "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." Though Kenny passed a polygraph in the original investigation, he has never given a full interview to police in the reopened case. Kenny also received property from Carol soon after Don disappeared, including real estate, later transferred back. Carol said she was helping Kenny invest. Skeptics suggested it could have been hush money. The nature and timing of these property swaps remain unexplained. Theory 2. Don Lewis fled or faked his own disappearance. Another widely circulated theory is that Don Lewis disappeared voluntarily, either to escape personal troubles or start a new life in Costa Rica. Supporters of this theory point to Don's frequent trips south, the fact that he had been transferring properties to a Costa Rican company, and his known pattern of vanishing for days at a time without warning. Kenny Farr in Tiger King claimed Don once said, "If I can pull this off, it'll be the slickest thing I ever did." The quote, if authentic, has been seized upon as possible evidence of a premeditated escape. Don's connections in Costa Rica were extensive. He owned 200 acres of land in Bagaces, had relationships there, and was known to keep cash stashes outside the US. Carol later said he planned to relocate their animal operations to Central America, possibly without her. In that context, disappearing could have been his exit strategy. The theory also leans on the idea that the abandoned van at the private airstrip was a decoy, but one created by Don himself, not his enemies. It could have been a ploy to make people think he left the country via small plane. Don had several aircraft and a history of flying without documentation, even after his pilot's license was suspended. Still, there are major obstacles. Notably, Don's finances were never touched. All his US bank accounts, credit cards, and assets remained frozen and accessible to Carol. No money was wired to Costa Rica, no cash withdrawn, no proof of any foreign account moving funds. Sheriff Chad Chronister has been unequivocal. This wealthy individual left his wealth behind. When's the last time you've ever heard of someone leaving without their wealth? Further doubt was cast when a Tiger King 2 segment briefly flashed what appeared to be a Department of Homeland Security document claiming Don was alive and well in Costa Rica. Carol cited it in interviews, but law enforcement discredited the claim. "We've received no such confirmation," Chronister said. Investigative site Snopes rated the report as unproven. If Don did escape, he left no digital or financial trace for nearly 28 years. That would require a level of planning and self-denial that most find implausible. Theory 3. Someone else killed Don, business or family enemies. A third theory is that someone outside the Baskin household orchestrated Don's disappearance, either for personal revenge, money, or to settle a score. Don Lewis had a complex network of business dealings, both in Florida and in Costa Rica. Some were above board, others were not. In Florida, Don bought distressed homes and flipped junked vehicles. In Costa Rica, police reports hinted at questionable business practices and alleged dealings with unsavory individuals. It's possible Don owed money or had made enemies abroad. Could one of those relationships have turned fatal? Investigators pursued this angle in 1997. They found Don had made multiple loans, some unsecured. If someone in Costa Rica saw Don as a threat or a liability, that might provide motive. But despite 5 days on the ground and multiple leads, police found no evidence of foul play there. Another version of this theory, floated by Carol Baskin herself, pointed fingers at Don's first wife, Gladys, and their children. In a video diary from 1997, Carol speculated that Gladys might have been motivated by bitterness and a failed $1 million alimony lawsuit. Don's family called this accusation desperate and false. There is no known evidence linking Gladys or the Lewis children to Don's disappearance. A less personal, more clinical variant of this theory suggests a business rival or angry debtor, someone with nothing to lose, ambushed Don or staged his vanishing. One such hypothetical, echoed in Tiger King, suggests Don may have been pushed out of a plane over the Gulf of Mexico, an idea supported loosely by Don's known practice of flying low to avoid radar. Don's daughter Gail Rathbone mentioned that theory in a 2020 interview. He was drugged and put in one of the small planes and dumped out in the Gulf. Yet no missing plane or radar anomaly was ever confirmed. Finally, there's the random foul play angle, that Don was robbed or killed by a stranger, or that he crashed a plane solo in the wilderness or water. But investigators have emphasized no wreckage was found, and Don's disappearance doesn't fit a pattern of a robbery gone wrong. His van was intact, his properties and equipment untouched. No signs of theft or forced entry. In the end, this theory suffers from the same flaw as the Costa Rica escape, a total absence of physical evidence. After nearly 3 decades, hundreds of tips, and 2 waves of national attention, the disappearance of Don Lewis remains officially unsolved. But when the dust settles and the noise of speculation clears, one scenario still rises to the top. Not because it's the most lurid or cinematic, but because it requires the fewest assumptions to explain the available facts. Applying Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is often the most likely. All signs point to a staged disappearance, orchestrated by someone within Don's immediate circle. And the evidence suggests that Carol Baskin, with help from Kenny Farr, is the most plausible architect of what happened next. Motive: marriage, money, and control. Don was preparing to leave, not just the house, but possibly the country. He was moving equipment, shifting property into a Costa Rican company, and telling multiple people he wanted a divorce. Carol herself admitted she didn't take that threat seriously. But in hindsight, it appears Don was serious, and that posed a major problem for Carol. If Don had divorced her, Carol stood to lose both financially and personally. The sanctuary they built together would have been carved up. According to Don's daughter, Donna Pettis, he told us several times he was going to divorce her. That's motive. Beyond money, there was a battle over the sanctuary's mission. Don wanted to keep breeding big cats. Carol wanted to turn it into a non-profit. These weren't minor disagreements. They were existential to both of them. A divorce would not only fracture the business, it might destroy Carol's vision altogether. Then came the legal red flag. Don filed a restraining order request in June 1997, stating that Carol had threatened to kill him. The judge denied it, but the warning was there in writing. She's got the motive, and she's got the power to do something about it, said Sheriff Chad Chronister. That's when things get dangerous. Opportunity. Alone, unaccounted, and uncooperative. Carol was the last person known to see Don alive. Her account of that night, a 3 a.m. milk run, a broken-down car, a random encounter with her deputy brother, has been viewed with skepticism by investigators. It's just not something that makes sense, said cold case detective Moise Garcia. You're telling me the last thing you did before your millionaire husband vanished was go out to buy Pedialyte in the middle of the night, and you just happened to see your brother on patrol? Even if the timing checks out, and parts of it do, it's her behavior after Don vanished that investigators find most suspicious. Within weeks, she cancelled Don's phone account, produced a will that activated upon him being missing, and assumed near total control of his estate. Years later, experts determined the signature on that will was a forgery. Carol denies any wrongdoing, but the coincidence is hard to ignore. Then there's her silence. In 2002, she declined a polygraph. In 2020, she refused to sit down with the reopened investigation. "You want to help clear your name? Talk to us," said Corporal Garcia. But she hasn't, and neither has Kenny. The role of Kenny Farr. If Carol had help, Kenny Farr is the most obvious candidate. He worked closely with both Don and Carol. He knew the layout of the sanctuary, the value of Don's assets, and how to move things without attracting attention. Most importantly, he was the one who allegedly showed up with Don's van and guns the night Don vanished. According to Trish Farr-Payne, Kenny's ex-wife, that Sunday Kenny left the house abruptly after a cryptic phone call. He came home late driving Don's van, filled with guns. He warned her not to say Don's name. The next day he returned in a different vehicle and repeated the warning. "If you try to leave me, I'll put you in the grinder like I did Don," he allegedly told her years later. This account aligns disturbingly well with what we know. The van turned up at the airfield with keys inside. No sign of Don, no flight plan, no missing aircraft. It looked like a setup. Carol later claimed she gave Don's guns to Kenny long after the disappearance. But if Kenny had them that very night, the timeline falls apart. Either Carol lied, or Kenny took them without her knowledge. An unlikely move for a man who remained in her employ and received property from her soon after. The property transfers themselves are suspicious. In September 1997, just weeks after Don went missing, Carol transferred real estate to Kenny or his family. The titles bounced back within a few years. Real estate experts called the deals messy and strange, suggesting a hidden arrangement. If not hush money, what were they? Means. No body, no scene, no trace. One of the most chilling aspects of the Don Lewis case is its cleanliness. There was no crime scene, no blood, no struggle, no body. If Don was killed, it was done efficiently, privately, and with an effective method of disposal. That kind of precision points to someone who had both time and familiarity with the environment. The sanctuary was the perfect place. Remote, sprawling, full of wild animals, and under the control of the very people under suspicion. But interestingly, that's probably not where Don's body ended up. The property was searched early. Carol would have known that. If she wanted to hide a body, she likely moved it quickly. Here's one plausible scenario. Don is killed in the early hours of August 18th. He's shot or strangled, something fast and quiet. The body is loaded into the van. Kenny, or a second accomplice, drives it off-site while it's still dark. The remains are disposed of in a swamp, a lake, or buried in one of Don's many undeveloped properties. Later, Kenny parks the van at the airport and leaves the keys on the floor. It's enough to suggest Don flew away, but not enough to prove it. Just enough to confuse the trail. The simplicity of this plan is its strength. No blood, no mess, no digital trail, no body. Just a series of actions that redirect attention away from the sanctuary and toward Costa Rica. Elimination of other theories. Let's briefly address why other theories fall under scrutiny. Don fled to Costa Rica. Then why did he leave his millions untouched? Why no calls to his children? Why abandon every account, credit card, and property? Killed by a business rival. No one in Costa Rica was arrested or even strongly suspected. Don's business partners had motive, perhaps, but no access. And his Florida properties were never raided or looted. An accident or animal attack. No plane wreckage, no remains, no missing flight logs. The van was planted. Don didn't wander off into the Everglades. Fed to tigers? It's a popular theory, but experts agree it's implausible. Tigers don't fully digest bones. Nothing was found. As Sheriff Chronister said, it's one of the more bizarre theories. No evidence supports it. So what's left? A small circle of people who had motive, opportunity, knowledge of the landscape, and a head start. As Sheriff Chronister summed up, there's normally not one person that commits a homicide. There's always a couple people. I'm extremely suspicious of the whole circle. The final picture. Don Lewis was likely killed on August 17th or 18th, 1997. The method remains unknown. The body was quickly and quietly disposed of in a remote location, possibly with assistance from Kenny Farr. The van was left at an airport to simulate an escape. Documents were forged, assets were claimed, and nearly 30 years later, the only two people who might know what really happened have refused to talk. Without a confession or the discovery of Don's remains, the case may remain in limbo. But based on what we do know and what we don't, the most likely scenario is that Don Lewis was murdered by someone close to him, and that the crime was covered up so well, it still holds up to this day. Secrets have a way of coming out, said one investigator during the Tiger King media frenzy. All we need is one person to talk. Until then, the disappearance of Don Lewis will remain a puzzle, just one with fewer missing pieces than most.